Bobby Benson one-on-one. One-on-one. That was horrendous. I mean, and such a cliched, flawed movie that was just pedantically slow in terms of pace. You knew exactly what was going to happen. I mean, who didn't think that Benson was going to star in the championship game at the end of that movie? It would have been a better movie if he got hurt and never, he left the court.
You're like rooting for him to get hurt.
Some imagination if you're writing one of these scripts, no?
Like, oh, wow, they did it. There was a twist. I didn't see that coming.
Who thought he was going to fall flat on his face and the coach was going to say, you know what? I told you were awful and you should have been on the team in the first place. I should have revoked your scholarship. You're a jerk.
He's down on his luck and becomes a drug addict. You're like, wow, that movie took a turn. What a great movie.
What a movie. It would have been a better movie if Hilary Swank had checked out after she got hit with the head with the chair, which, not even Richard Steele would have allowed that to go on. Steve Smoger, who would have a guy, I nicknamed Steve Smoger, the boxing referee, let him bleed. Guy would be bleeding from every pore, and the Smoger going, yeah, one more round. That's it, kid. If you don't show me something here, I'm going to have to stop it. Steve, this fight should have been stopped when he came out of the dressing room. What are you talking about?
He's like passing out.
Guy's getting a transfusion in the corner, and Smoger's going, okay, man. He's telling Emmanuel Stewart, I'll give you a guy one more round. That's it.
Oh my God. The time.
Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Appealing Yourself Off the Mat Monday edition of the Defo Show. It's funny, Lubie, we had the 3-day weekend a couple of weeks back there with Memorial Day. This was your conventional 2-day weekend, and yet it seemed like a long one. Does a rainy day make the weekend seem longer? Does it drag it out a little bit? Yep. Ended up watching a little more television than I would care to normally on the weekend, although I was immersed from about 6 in the morning on. I think it started at 5 a.m., might have been 6, the French Open. Good stuff there. Americans making their way through and still involved in the tournament, which I guess is a good thing, especially on the women's side. Coco Gauff, I think this morning already played and may have made her way into the quarterfinal round. So she's one of 8 left. Jessica Pegula was on the court when we started the show and seemed to be in command of her match. So that would be 2 out of 8 Americans, and there are others. So very promising. A sport that was supposed to be dead in the United States of America, and very much validated by the idea that we haven't had a Grand Slam champion. I think the last one was Andy Roddick back in like 2000 or something.
The male.
It might have been a little bit later than that, but been a long time, Lubie, since we've been in the winner's circle in a Grand Slam event. Although I guess Coco Gauff has won a slam, Madison Keys won a slam.
Yeah, I mean,
won the Australian Open. But on the men's side, forget it. How are you, by the way, my friend? How is life with a pregnant woman? Is it progressing in the fashion that you imagined, or are you putting on a little weight? What's going on?
We're actually doing well in the weight category. We'll see how long that lasts. She's just tired a lot, and she doesn't have the will to like go do stuff. Like she feels fine, everything's good. Went to the doctors last week. Everything's looking great, thank God. The baby boy's progressing as he's supposed to. She's just like on the weekends we put the registry together and a little stuff around the house.
That's how you end up putting the weight on, Lubie. You still have what, 4 or 5 months to go?
I have 5 months. Yeah, I have time. I know it's not done yet.
You're gonna have to go Jake LaMotta, Raging Bull. Somebody says, "Hey, it looks like you put a little weight on," and you go, "I'll take it right off. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
Get right back in shape." Anyway, so that also left opportunity for a lot of television viewing, although you already had the conclusion. I never thought in my lifetime, and I don't know that this is the case yet, that South Florida would become a hockey town. Did you ever think that South Florida, regardless of the success of the team, now think about this. This is staggering. Imagine if this was going on in Toronto or Montreal, where you had a team that was going to be in its 3rd straight Stanley Cup final. This is somewhat of a rarity, not unprecedented by any means. We've seen teams make it and even win. The Islanders back in the day won 4 straight Stanley Cups. Incredible.
Yep.
All under the auspices of the gentleman that started it all right here in South Florida, as we had Bill Torrey in charge of the organization at the very beginning, and he did have phenomenal success. I still think too, you guys on Bleacher Brothers, go back and check out this interview from last week with Scott Mellenby. It was, and I saw a note from the great Chris Visser this morning on an email, and he had sent Mellenby a message that he thought, Luby, and I don't know. I mean, this is saying a lot, that of the thousands of interviews that he's ever been connected with as a producer or had anything to do with, the hand in it, he set this thing up for me with Scott Mellenby, that this was among the 10 best interviews that he's ever heard in terms of the performance of the guest and what they
That's
had to say.
great.
It really was. I mean, it was actually a lot of fun, Luby. It's one of those ones where you didn't really have to do anything.
Nice.
It started on its own with Mellenby breaking in with the story about the rats. It was a crossover going on with Grant Long. And Grant, it was kind of interesting to me because I'm looking at two guys on the screen, and both were involved with original franchises, expansion teams here in South Florida around the same time, although the Heat started in 88, 89, and the Panthers came along in 93, 94.
Yeah.
So, they didn't actually overlap in terms of their time in the city, but it was kind of interesting. And yeah, no, it was great. And we do have a little Panther fever, I would say, but is it mild, Luby? I mean, should there not be much more noise being made about this? Is it time that we ratchet it up and
Mm,
amplified the sound about this particular series? Edmonton and the Florida Panthers, a rematch of last year's final, went 7 games. Panthers were in dominating control, up 3-0, lost 3 straight. Everybody was getting very, very nervous. It was anxiety city here in South Florida. And then they play a bloodbath in a final game, which most people considered was controlled almost completely in its entirety by the Florida Panthers, and yet they only won by 1 goal. Amazing.
yes. Yes.
What helter-skelter there was in those last couple of minutes, and then claimed the cup. The celebrations were as wild as any we've seen in Stanley Cup history. Now, we haven't tracked them all because usually Stanley Cup is a distant consideration and had been for. Did you ever envision during that 20-year malaise or whatever that was? How long did that last? Where the Panthers just were awful for 2 decades? That's a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
you get neutered as a fan, and you get conditioned to the idea that your team is never going anywhere, never doing anything significant. They can give you all of the shtick they want about, well, we got the right blend of the young guys and the older guys. It's like, I got to believe it.
Get that out of here.
Sick of these people. Get them all out of here. Ship them all out. Start a whole new roster. And I don't know that they had to do that, but definitely reformed and refined the roster greatly under Bill Zito in the last few years. 3rd year in a row in the Stanley Cup. Now, where do we stand with this, Lou? Because I don't want to be pessimistic. I'm feeling a little uneasy about this series. I would love to think the Panthers go back to back and win 2 Stanley Cups just to see what it does to this town in terms of team recognition and where they would rank. You still see them, what, 3rd on the totem pole of professional sports teams here? And maybe are they 4th? Is Hurricane football prominent enough at this stage? Football, we
Not
know,
right
is king.
Not right now.
But what would you say? I mean, who gets? Do the Dolphins still get the most attention of anybody and have the biggest fan base? Possibly so. I mean, if you just went by stadium size and number of seats sold, you could say that. Ratings for NFL games are always going to be higher than NBA and NHL games, certainly. The Marlins just wiping up the rear, no matter what they do. It just seems like the inevitable is happening, that they're going to destroy any potential success that they have within sometimes the same season and no later than the very next year. Correct. The Kim Eng thing, I guess, was indicative of the idea. Now, she ended up starting some women's professional softball league. I don't know if she started it, but she's in
Right,
charge.
so
Kim
head of
Eng.
it. Yeah.
And they just signed a deal with Major League Baseball. It's going to back this thing. I think guaranteeing that they'll have early survival. They won't have to sweat out whether or not they're going to be extinct and have to deal with teams being contracted and all of that stuff right out of the chute. That this money should give them a pretty good foundation, I would imagine.
Yeah.
She seems to have success everywhere she goes, this Kim Eng. So, of course, the Marlins would immediately dismiss her after her greatest achievement, which was bringing in Bell and Jake Berger at the trade deadline and having a team that was destined to go nowhere in the postseason. with Don Mattingly. Did he win Manager of the Year that year? I think he did. Or did he win it the
Yes.
year that was of the COVID? Well, when was he Manager of the Year, Don Mattingly?
The year they went to the play, it was probably the COVID year. They went to the playoffs though,
Yeah,
like after a disaster for years.
pretty incredible. Yeah, so they would have to really be. I mean, you're dragging an anchor on the bottom there, and maybe even stuck on a rock if you're back in the Marlins to do anything of any great significance. So, although they did have a guy, the X-Man, Xavier Edwards, go 5 for 5 yesterday, Libby. Which did that tie the franchise record, or did that set a new mark for most hits in a game by a single player? You would think Louis Arise at some point had 5 hits. No,
Yeah,
when he was a Marlin, did he not have any 5-hit games? Nobody's had 6 in a game for a Marlin.
Castillo. I mean, they've had some guys that can hit. You would think that's happened before. That's interesting.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm going to conjecture that tied the mark. Although I read it a different way this morning in one of the articles I read, but who knows if you're getting the truth anymore? People just say things online, and now, I mean, look, people say things in general, and they're just widely taken at face value. Correct?
Yes.
All that stuff about day one. I don't want to get into that. People just
Yeah.
assume, yeah, okay, yeah, that's going to happen. Oh yeah, someday we'll be good. Sports franchises have been selling us that crap forever. Oh yeah, don't worry about a thing. By next year, 2 years from now, this plan is going to take its effect and have impact, and you'll see this Bendix guy is going to.
Yeah.
Is he really going to turn things around, or is this guy due to be just dismissed immediately? What do you think?
I lean the latter. They've had a lot of fight this year. I'll give them that. They've won some games late. Their offense is much better than people thought it would be. The rotation has some young promise.
Sandy Alcantara's been a failure so far this year.
Guys like Alcantara have been a disaster, and people were joking that he'd be traded. Now you wish you could trade him. I don't know what you could trade him for.
So somebody will take a shot on a guy. A guy can have his right arm amputated, a right-handed pitcher. Some team will sign him, right? Look at, I don't know. I guess he's doing all right. I've seen a couple of favorable results. Jacob deGrom. I mean, the guy appeared to be just an accident winner. You talk about your man Porzingis being always injured. Jacob deGrom, as great as he was when on and on his game, had what? How many Tommy Johns has this guy had?
Oh, like
I think
25.
he changed his last name to John. They're like 6 Tommy John surgeries. And people still sign him for like 2 years, $190 million.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. So people will always take a shot. All right, so let's get into it here. Right, Edmonton and the Panthers, and then of course we have OKC and Indiana. That series is already, and especially since it doesn't start until Thursday, has that left the focal point of people's consciousness, even the biggest of basketball fans? Are you sensing, Lubie, that people are sitting around going, "Man, I can't wait for that series to start"?
Everyone assumes it's going to be a bloodbath. That's the problem with that series. I think
Heavily
the Pacers,
favored. OKC heavily favored.
I think I know the Knicks fans were excited. I think the Pacers match up much better with the Thunder than the Knicks do. I think the Pacers go deeper. I think they are much more offensively inclined. I think they have a better coach. So I think they can make this series more fun. Like, whereas if it was the Knicks, I thought the Thunder would just.
Knicks are already trying. They're infighting now. All of a sudden, Towns played lousy defense all season.
I mean, but okay, like what? Our friend the professor says, and he's not wrong. Like, when do teams get rid of guys that are perennial all-stars in their mid-20s? When? Like, the fact that the T-Wolves were willing to get rid of him. Remember, they made it to the – people forgot they were the 1 seed making it to a conference finals. Like, for the T-Wolves, and they got rid of him for Julius Randle and DiVincenzo. Like, when a guy's and he was a cornerstone, again, he was a number 2 on that team, at times a number 1. Remember, Edwards was the young guy coming in, and they just got rid of him for pennies on the dollar. I mean, Randall ended up playing really well for the T-Wolves, but he was a disaster for the Knicks in the playoffs. Like, people are like shocked at what Towns is. That's what he was. He gives you games where he gives you 24 and 20, and you're like, wow, look at this guy. And then he gives you games where he has 4 fouls in the third quarter because he's not a defender. He doesn't know how to play defense, and they were asking him to play defense. So the way he plays defense is fouling the crap out of people because he has no idea what he's doing. Like, look, the Knicks, it's a miraculous year. They got to the conference finals. They built on last year, but it's what I said, and I guess Knicks fans, at least smart ones, are realizing, oh, this may be our ceiling. Yes, guys, this is your ceiling. Jalen Brunson, as your number 1 player, this is your ceiling. Like they would have lost. They would have got swept by the Thunder. It would have been so disgusting to see that team versus the Thunder with Tom Thibodeau playing 7 guys. Like the Pacers at least go 9-10 deep. The Pacers move the ball well. The Pacers play team basketball. The Pacers have multiple guys that can get their own basket. The Pacers have guys that are pretty consistent offensively. The Pacers do present mismatches with a Siakam, with a Halliburton, who's a taller point guard. Like the Pacers at least could make it fun where I could see it going 5-6. Like if the Knicks were there, oh my God. Like that would have been they would have been happy for the ratings, but the series itself would have been such a mismatch. Like it's going to be a mismatch regardless. The Thunder are just in their own class this year right now. But I mean, at least the Pacers can do a little bit more offensively than the Knicks can.
They're among the heaviest of favorites in some time in terms of odds to win the series. You have to lay, I believe, 800 to win 100 if you want OKC, which some people would consider not bad because the likelihood of Indiana winning the series seems to be beyond slim and bordering more on none, at least in the opinion of many. That shouldn't dissuade you necessarily from going ahead and boldly going with both fists into your pockets and unloading on Indiana because they've been big underdogs before. You would have never imagined that Cleveland series is still one of the great mysteries of all time.
Yeah, that's weird.
Well, we come to find out that there was a fix in that series. Cleveland two 50-point annihilations of the Miami Heat, who no matter what, I mean, they at least seem to play with enough pride that they if they got blown out in Game 3, that they weren't going to just mail it in Game 4, which they didn't even mail it in. I mean, there was nobody home there. That was essentially a forfeit. So how does Cleveland go from that, looking that great, and in the very next series, I know they had the injuries, and they were significant because it was their 3 top players all injured or banged up in that series. They did get them back at one point, but they never were able to work their way back into the series. And wow, I mean that was the big shocker. I think Indiana was a plus 425 underdog in that series against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that number seemed short, didn't it? If you just looked at the two teams and the way they performed in the first round, yeah, Indiana was a team on the come, as they say, but Cleveland looked dominant.
Yes.
Just so good that you thought this was it, man. They not only are going to blow Indiana out, but if they got to Boston, which turned out not to be the case anyway, they would have probably destroyed the Celtics. At least that's the way it appeared. Next thing you know, they're out of the postseason altogether.
Yep.
That was crazy. That threw a wrench in there. So heavily favored Oklahoma City over the Indiana Pacers. The over-under number of games in the series. I don't know if that was posted in here. No, I don't have that. I do have that in the Edmonton, Florida series. Everybody thinks it's going at least 6 games.
Yeah, I think it's going to go. It feels like a 7-game bloodbath. I don't know. The Oilers have played really good hockey. And look, if you look at the scores, they're similar to the Panthers. If you look at how they got through the playoffs, it's similar to the Panthers. There's something to be said for the team that's trying to repeat versus the team that's trying to get there first. And I get it. 40 years ago, the Oilers were a dynasty, but then they fell off the face of the earth. And it is Canada, and they are the only Canadian team that's been successful for the last few years. They have that whole country. That country doesn't mind rooting for a team that they hate because it's representing their country, especially in this sport, especially versus another Florida team, the 6th straight year that a state of Florida team is in the Stanley Cup Finals. Like, there's a lot of things that is making Canada behind the Edmonton Oilers. So I don't know. It scares me a little bit because you could see if anyone's going to be hungry, it's going to be the Oilers. Now, I'll give the Panthers credit. They've handled this like a team that is forgetting they won last year. They didn't go near the damn Eastern Conference. They didn't go the Lady Bing or whatever. They didn't go near it. They weren't celebrating. Like, people were juxtaposing because it was the same night. The Thunder celebrating because it's their first time in the finals since, 2011 when they faced the Heat, versus the Panthers, who looked like Barry Sanders scoring a touchdown. Like, it was very, we won. We're happy we won. All right, we're done. We have the cup, which I appreciate. Like, as a Panther fan, you want them to have one goal. But again, they did win it. And the Oilers were there watching the seconds tick down in the corner, watching a cup leave their hands as they had just won 3 in a row. So, Yeah, I don't know. This really does feel the opposite of what's in the NBA. Like where it's Goliath versus David. Like this feels like two powerhouses ready to bloody each other up in a sport that's made to bloody each other up.
Very, very evenly matched, and the odds makers are looking at it that way. You are getting a little price if you're betting the Panthers. They're underdogs in the series. You're not actually getting anything. You don't have to pay to choose. You're getting even money. They're at plus 100. So you bet 100 to win 100, and that's if you favor the Panthers in the series. You have to lay 120 to win 100 on the Edmonton Oilers. So that's where it stands. A little 20-point line there, a little differential. But Edmonton favored. This is the tough one. I was in touch with the great Bill Lindsay, trying to get him to come on a show this week.
Oh, nice.
And so the Panthers will be taking off for Edmonton, it turns out, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, somewhere in that area.
Okay.
They will be on a flight to Edmonton. So they get to Edmonton over a day before the opening game. Now, these guys are accustomed to travel, but are these the two most diametrically opposed geographical locations that
Probably.
you can have? I mean, where's Edmonton in relation to Vancouver? My Western Canada geography is not exactly up to speed here, but it seems like this would be the longest trip. If it isn't the longest, then it would be Vancouver, you would have to think. Or is Winnipeg further out there? I don't know. Where the hell is Winnipeg? Does anybody know?
Feels like Winnipeg is, but I definitely can look it up. I mean, okay, so it's not saying Edmonton is, it's saying Edmonton's west, but like bordering the United States.
Okay.
So I guess Vancouver is much more north.
Yeah, all right. There's sort of an elegance, I guess, to the concept of Vancouver. You say Vancouver, and what's the usual
Supposedly it's a
reaction?
really nice city. Like it's not
Exactly that, Lubie.
Yeah,
That's what
supposedly
people
it's
say.
nice, great food. The weather's not as horrible as people assume.
Yeah.
That's not what you hear with Winnipeg, though. So
Well,
Winnipeg maybe.
Edmonton. I mean, what's in Edmonton?
I
Nothing.
have no idea.
Is that like a vast wasteland? I mean, what does it look like? If you're living in Edmonton, is it kind of like, that town where they take off on Deadliest Catch? Somewhere there's like nothing. There's one bar where they all get bleep faced, and that's it. That's all you have. So, to what extent then, Lubie? Now, I mean, look, the Panthers obviously won games in Edmonton. They beat them the two times they played in a regular season. They're 2-0. Both games were decided by one goal, I think, and not enough of a sample size there to really say, oh, well, geez, the Panthers have their number. I'm not sure that you want to go that route, but yeah, I mean, not having that, they had the home ice last year. It did make a difference. You had to think in Game 7.
Game 7, having Luongo be a rabid lunatic before the game felt like it set a tone that team needed desperately at that point.
Yes, and you would have to think. I mean, no matter how great you are at focusing on the so-called Tony Segreto moment,
Yeah.
and zeroing in on the task at hand, blocking out all distractions, it has to feel better having the home crowd and the entire crowd juiced up behind you, and kind of emitting that emotion that might provide a team with a little bit of a spark. I don't know. What do you think? I mean, there are players that are great, and they like to stick it up the fannies of the fans in other buildings. We see all of that. I can't hear you and all of this BS. But it has to be an advantage, no? If you're in a nice Game 7, there's a crowd behind you, I would think.
For a title, look, we saw the Panthers this year beat the Maple Leafs in a Game 7 on the road. But in hockey, we've seen the Panthers actually have a better road record this playoffs than they do at home, and they're not bad at home, but their road record is ridiculous. But there's something about a Stanley Cup Finals Game 7, like it's nice to be at home. So that's my fear in this series. Is this time around, the Oilers, I think, had 3 more points in the regular season than the Panthers, and that 3 points will give them a Game 7 at home, which they did not have last year.
So I don't know how much of a factor is that.
That feels big.
I don't know why it feels strange to me, because I have been watching many of the Edmonton games through the postseason. I started tracking them a little bit when they were down 2-0 to the Kings. I did watch periods and spots of those games also. It does seem to me that they're very much on their game. If I'm not mistaken, didn't they have to bench Skinner, their goalie, at one point because he was getting thrashed? I think they might have sat him after those first 2 losses in L.A., and it was very suspect. I remember Bobrovsky that first year when the Panthers lost the Stanley Cup, even though he was great in the postseason when they lost to Las Vegas. But Bobrovsky going into that, what wasn't it? I mean, wasn't he highly suspect going into whether he was even going to be the starter?
Stolar started the run.
Yeah.
Stolarz was the guy in the beginning of the playoffs. Remember, Bob had been hurt, and then he wasn't playing great. Stolarz started it, played pretty well. Then they switched, and Bob went on a run until they got to the finals, and then everything just fell apart.
Yeah, it seemed like this Skinner though ended up relocating his game a little bit.
Yes,
Because in the last few games, he's been fairly stout there in the pipes. I don't know. It's hard to say, but both goalies have shown signs of being suspect, and yet I would think you would have to give the edge to Bobrovsky, who usually is, as you ask people, hey, who's got the best goalie left, even when there were four of them. Bobrovsky was the name that popped up the most. You watch a lot of these analysis shows, and if they're pinpointing who has the best chance because of the goaltender, most of these experts, so-called experts, end up pointing to Bobrovsky. I don't know. What do you think? How do you feel about this guy going in?
How I feel about him. Look, the Bobrovsky's complicated because he's not like we saw with Anderson and their backup, and then with the Maple Leafs backup, where he gives up goals in droves. Where like the game's close, then you look back and he just gave up 3 goals in 5 minutes. Like he doesn't do that. I'll give him that. Like he keeps them in games when they're struggling to score. He makes saves that are timely that keep them in the game. But he does give up really stupid goals for a goalie of his caliber. Like the goals he does give up are like, dude, you just saved. Like he'll make these saves where 3 dudes are coming at him and he's cat-like. And then a dude hits it from the blue line with a clear path, and he just looks around like, where was it? You know, like
There it is.
He's confusing because that's why it's hard for me to put him on that level with the greats of like the 90s and 2000s when you had Brodeur, Waugh, and Hasek, where they would literally stand on their head. Like they would literally, like they would give up a goal, but it would be because their team was just letting them down. It was a 0-0 game late, and like they were being barraged, and a goal happened. Okay, like you didn't see them give up the greasy goals, as you guys call it. Like that's my problem with Bob. Bob is a really good goalie. It's just hard for me to call him a great goalie because you know he's going to, if he faces more than 20 shots, he's giving up 2 stupid ass goals. He's just but he doesn't give up 5. So I've now witnessed really bad goalie play. Between the Maple Leafs backup and the Hurricanes starter and backup, where it's like, okay, I see what they mean. When I'm frustrated as a fan, he still keeps them around. It's within 2 goals. It's within striking distance, where these guys were giving up like there was stretches give up 4 goals in 4 minutes, and it's like that
backup for the Hurricanes who had a great first period. You thought, wow, this guy's really sharp, and then you realize why he's the backup goaltender, because they just can't sustain it over the
bingo.
And you go to take a leak, and you come back, and 3 goals have been scored, and you're thinking that's freaking horrible, man. I mean, you're trying to watch a game, and all of the action happens in a span of 45 seconds, and then the rest of the game, it's just back and forth, back and forth. All right, well, your prediction, and I know you're going to predict the Panthers will win this. I think. More certainly here where we reside and originate the program from, Southern Florida, you're going to have the majority of people just completely summarily dismissing the Edmonton Oilers, Connor McDavid notwithstanding.
Yeah.
And Draisaitl, and they have a few others that are of significance. I don't know. I'm wildly intrigued. This is another one of those deals where I don't even know if you could say that you're safe to formulate an opinion after you see one game. Because it may take a couple of games to establish what the hell is going to transpire in that series. So we'll see. But it should be a lot of fun. A rematch for the Stanley Cup. In my wildest dreams, I never ever would have envisioned, as we were discussing whether or not a hockey franchise, could make it in the Deep South, essentially, which is where we are. That would be back-to-back Stanley Cup attempts and 3 straight years in the finals. Pretty incredible for any city. How many cities too? Lubie, you know what? We cry a lot about the indifference that sets in here because teams really, and on rare occasion, have been able to sustain some level of excellence. Is that a fair statement for our teams? I mean, the Dolphins, you would not say they've sustained the level of excellence at any time in the post Marino era, have they? Do you trust this team
Oh,
ever? I mean, I know you hate the general manager in terms of his work. I mean, not personally or anything, but let's face it. If the announcement came down today that Chris Greer had been fired as the general manager of the Miami Dolphins, you would find it to be cause for celebration, wild celebration. There may even be declarations were made to call it, the day of reckoning, Judgment Day here in South Florida. Finally, and they could give the job to Bill Zito. I don't care what he knows about football. This guy has proven to be one of the most ingenious front office executives of the last several years in all of sports. I would have to say, who is eclipsed what this guy's done? And it's even more abstract because it's hockey, so we have no idea what he really did or why he did it. It's just we think we know, but we don't, man. It's an
look, I mean, when he get like it's you've seen blockbuster trades,
yeah,
but it's rare to see a guy that was he a runner up Huberdeau that year in the MVP? Like he was either
he was in contention. Yeah, I mean the only thing he wasn't a dynamic goal scorer. I think did he have 30 goals with all
that year? He had woken up. I think he led the league in points. He was like a great scorer. Was always a great facilitator, great leader during the regular season. The team loved him. The fans loved him.
And where is he today, man? I mean, they traded him to Calgary.
You haven't heard his name.
You may as well have traded him to some team in Kazakhstan.
So that started it. They make that run, and then they're on death's door. So they won one game, I guess, in that cup, but it was pretty much a gentleman's sweep. And then that offseason, he tinkers. And at the trade deadline, he tinkers. And then they go right through the playoffs in a murderer's row fashion, but make it through. And in a ridiculous series, win the cup. Then in the offseason, and it's interesting, Kachuk talked about this after the game, and it wasn't a slight to his former teammates, but he said, look, if we had just run it back, we wouldn't be here. He's like, what we did in the offseason and then what they did at the deadline, because you look, Seth Jones and Brad Marchand were as integral to this team in the playoff run as any two players. I mean, that you heard
they may be the most prominent guys that we've seen.
And those weren't even offseason. Those were trade deadline moves. Marchand was hurt. He barely played for the Panthers until the play. He has sea legs in the playoffs. It's like it's to see a team make a run. I would have to say the Dolphins in the early 70s when they went from expansion team in 1969 to going to 3 straight Super Bowls 2 years later. I presume personnel was as important as anything Don Shula did. When you look at the Heat, and they got the big three, but they were able to, even though people made fun of their parts, the parts actually fit really well with the big three, and they made 4 straight runs. That's really it. Like the Canes, it was different coaches, and it was college, and it was at a time where, especially in South Florida, when people didn't even recruit South Florida, so you could own the greatest talent region, not state. You could get California, Texas, but just one region, especially at that time, nothing competed with South Florida, and no one knew it. So you could, from the 80s and 90s, if you were smart and you just kept South Florida guys home, which is what all those coaches did, Schnellenberger, Johnson, Erickson, you could run roughshod. So it's hard to compare to that because this is professional sports in the modern day where there's salary caps and stuff like that. Like in South Florida, outside of the Dolphins in the early 70s and the Heat in 2010, there's nothing. Like even when the Marlins won, it wasn't automatic and it wasn't like dynastic. Like 3 straight and Stanley Cup, as we know, is the hardest thing. Like it's nuts the teams the Panthers have faced. 3 straight Stanley Cup finals is utterly ridiculous. And it's something that you're not wrong. Like no, even though people are more excited this year than they had been, it's still not the kind, like if the Dolphins were in 3 straight Super Bowls, that's all anyone would be talking about. Like
I mean, it was 1970s, early 70s when they did that, and that's it. Nothing since. Went there one time with Danny Boy without that big of a shot of winning the game. I actually had a small amount of money on the Dolphins to win that thing. And after 2 plays, you were asking yourself, what the bleep was I thinking? The 49ers are going to annihilate. I mean, my God. What was that the game where Jay Brophy was spinning around like Linda Blair in The Exorcist, trying to
Roger Craig. You couldn't cover Roger Craig.
Follow Roger Craig. And did they also have Wendell Tyler?
Yes, that's the
running
only thing about that Niners team. I don't know if Rice was on that team. Like they were a great team.
But it
That
was,
was Rice.
I mean, such a far-fetched mismatch. It was disgusting to watch. I still remember the feeling I had because I was a big fan of Danny Boy and the whole story. And it's one of those good stories. It's kind of what you're touching on here with the Panthers and where you get some front office ingenuity. It happened with Kim Eng here in town.
Yeah.
I always love this aspect of sports when some new addition comes in and actually makes a difference. Now, there was a bogus story here for, and it still persists if you ask people, in what was it, the 97 team? Or was it 2003? I think it was when they brought in Darren Dalton.
No, 97. That was 97.
97, yeah. And everybody thought, whoa, that's the thing that turned it around. Darren Dalton,
He like 200.
no, he hit like 240. He was hardly the reason. Gary Sheffield had like 30 home runs in September. There was the reason that you were in the World Series.
Pitchers. I mean, Kevin Brown and Leiter.
It had nothing to do with Darren Dalton, but I do love that when you get an infusion, a spark, when either a guy comes to the team late in the season or somehow emerges out of nowhere like Dontrell Willis did, where you're like, oh yeah, who's this guy? And we had pretty much Fernando Mania right here in South Florida. Those kind of things are great when they happen. It's happened now a couple of times with this Florida Panther team. So where do you see it? I mean, you're calling what? If you're taking Panthers in 7, they would have to win that last game in Edmonton after schlepping back and forth twice in the span of a few days. That has to weigh on you, no, Lubie? I don't care what kind of luxury you're flying in. After being in a plane for more than 4 or 5 hours and then having to jump on another flight, what are we, in the Amazing Race? What the hell is this?
I was going to say that sounds like the Amazing Race.
Now, these Canadian players on the team, they probably have an easier time adapting to the culture shock that is Edmonton versus South Florida. Imagine. I mean, these guys are partying in Fort Lauderdale, which I don't know. At one time, does anybody go to South Beach anymore, or is that a thing of the past? Because that was always the allegation, the assertion was that South Beach was the Heat's sixth man.
And it's not what it was. It's different. I guess people go there, and people go to Miami. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if they're going to South Beach specifically.
Hockey players, are they venturing to South Beach when they have a nice posh environment here? They can live in relative anonymity in their hometown of Broward County.
Yep.
Right? If you saw a Panther player in a grocery store, would you recognize him right away, Lubie? Even though you're following the game kind of, much more closely than you have.
Maybe Barkov, maybe Kachuk. I don't know if I'd recognize anyone else.
Isn't that interesting? There's a team in 3 state championships, and these guys literally could be in front of you in line.
100%.
With like 7 items, and you've got 2, and you're asking the guy, "Hey, buddy, you mind if I get in front of you?"
You have no idea.
It's like Kachuk. I don't know. Is he recognizable? It's interesting. Okay. So you got the Panthers even money if you want to bet them in the series over 5.5 games is getting hammered. I think you have to lay like 275 to win 100 if you want over 5.5 games. So which means essentially that. What? I mean, can you envision either of these teams not winning at least 2 games in the series?
It's hard to see it. I can. I mean, look, if the Oilers get on a heater and do what they did the games 4 through 6, then yeah. I mean, they were beating the crap out of the Panthers in those games. Like, those games weren't even really that close.
Wasn't there like an 8-1?
Yeah, when they were facing elimination down 3-0, they annihilated the crap out of the Panthers. Like, those games were rough, and you can see that the Oilers have that in them. The Panthers don't usually do that for 4 straight games. Like, we've seen them do it for a game, maybe 2. It's hard to believe that they're going to do that 4 straight games the way they're constituted now, and the way that they have their sights set on one mission, that they're going to let their guard down for 4 games like that.
Pivotal game 1 coming up. It's on Wednesday night. Pivotal.
It is pivotal game 1, yes.
We'll see what happens. We may be pivoting our opinion. I'm fearing Edmonton. I don't know why.
I know. I
don't know why. I just have this sick feeling inside me as I woke up.
I want it. McDavid is being talked about as one of the greats. All the greats have at least a title, like the greats. I'm not talking about like Cam Newton, like guys that were really good, the greats, guys that like Gordie Howe, Wayne Gretzky, Bobby Hull, like the guys that people put in that conversation of like top 5, whatever the hell ever, best of their generation. Sidney Crosby, even Ovechkin. It took him a long time, but even Ovechkin got his cup. Like in hockey, if you are a Lemieux, if you are one of those all-time greats, you win a cup.
Yeah.
But David doesn't have one yet, and they want to put him in that. And hey, look, he literally won the Conn Smythe as a loser last year. That's how good he was in the last 4 games, because the first 2 to 3 games,
and he's on his game, Lubie. I can assure you. I told you about that one goal. It was remarkable.
So a guy like that knows really all he's playing for now is history. He's not playing for anything but history. He needs a cup, and there's only so many opportunities you get. Like, even as great as a guy like he is, look at Wayne. Once he went to the Kings, he never went back. He was still a great player. He was fantastic, but there's a period where you can go, and they have Draisaitl, and Hyman's not playing, but they have a team that's built around him, and he's won with them. You're not guaranteed to keep going back. So that scares the living crap out of me. That really does that.
Yeah.
He's on that kind of a mission, and he knows he's playing against history, and those guys usually find a way to get that cup. We saw it with Ovechkin. We've seen it with every great player of their time in this sport, that they find a way. And that the hunger, you can have the mission and all that crap, but winning one versus a team that lost, you can't make that up. Like that, and that's scaring the crap out of me. Like I think it'll be a series. I think it'll be a tough series, but it really feels like the Oilers are the favorite for a reason. I know it's a slight favorite, but they're the slight favorite.
Lost the 2 games in a regular season. We'll see. It should be wildly entertaining. What's funny too is I guess it's because it's our hometown team that's involved here again. But while there's this immense fear, which many people are arguing it makes no difference, and we're kind of being facetious when we try to give you the vision of executives jumping out of 30-story buildings in New York, because they've got Oklahoma City and freaking Indiana. Nobody gives a flying one about the series. You're hearing zero talk about it. Even basketball fans have thrown in the towel, and they're starting to speculate about the draft, as if the series didn't even need to be played, which I don't know. I still love basketball, so I'll be tuned in to see what happens and see what kind of account Indiana can give of it. I'd love to see him pull off the upset, because I mean, every analyst would be completely zamboozled. Have you ever seen a more decisive concession? There have been larger odds and spreads in terms of the odds to win the final round, but not by much, right? I mean, the Lakers a couple of times had odds that were like that you had to lay 2,000 to win 100. I think when they took on, what was it, the 76ers with Irish?
The early 2000s is the closest, when the Lakers took on the Sixers, and they got the one game, and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
And the Spurs took on the Nets in the early 2000s, when the Spurs took on the Cavs with young LeBron. Like, look, the Heat versus the Nuggets a couple years ago, where the Heat put up a fight, but no one in the right mind thought that he would actually, especially with a beleaguered, hurt Jimmy Butler, no one thought that he would actually win that series. This feels like it's up there with those mismatches of
I don't know anybody that said, hey, you know what, I love the Pacers. I'm going to put $2,000 on them, 2 dimes on it's going out today. All right, we're coming back with more. We've been trailing that music for about 15 minutes trying to get to our break here, and we'll have that for you. We'll come back with more. Scotty Scheffler wins again. I guess what you have to do with Scheffler is parlay him one tournament to the next. Then you're cashing. Odds of that, and look, he'd been showing signs all during the early portion of the year that he had that hand injury, that strange O.J. Simpson thing where he cut his hand on a wine bottle. He was like carving up some kind of salami with a cut wine bottle or something. Scotty Scheffler can't afford like a set of Ginsu knives.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't he have been better off if he just took like a wedge and hacked it? The hell are you doing, Scotty Scheffler? Showing more personality, which still isn't saying much, because when you were flatlining on the personality level before, right? But look, I don't know. This guy's doing phenomenal stuff. He wins again. And French Open in action. Like I said, I haven't tracked all of it. I have to take a glance at the scores there. And there was plenty of Major League Baseball activity, although, Lubie, we have yet to really address this on the program. Is that being force-fed like through July, and you can't wait to get to some kind of conversation on football? Is that a shame, Lubie, that baseball is that far out of the people's consciousness, at least for most people. All right, back with more in a moment. Now that. The time. Baseball. So 8:47.
Hey, folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously, friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs, unmatched. Steaks, hand cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-4...
Can't fake caring. Women can sense this immediately.
You don't really care. You didn't really want to do any of this.
We now return to the Defo Show.
All right, welcome back to the show. Jeff DeForest. We got Mike Lubitz, and we've been talking about the upcoming championship series, kind of dismissive of the basketball championship round as, wow. And look, that argument, everybody says the same thing. The league got its money. It doesn't matter to them who's in the finals. Would you like to see new blood as a sports fan? Some new team come along? If Indiana turned out to be a team that had been on the ascent and all of a sudden went all the way to the very top, won a championship by some... Wow, I mean, what would it take for that to happen, Lubie? Halliburton, is he enough to carry them past this Oklahoma City team with Holmgren swatting shots from the midcourt stripe? He comes swooping in there, and this guy, this skinny little waif of a human being. They do come at you in waves. So does Indiana, though. Indiana was impressive. I didn't think the Knicks were a great team, and I guess it's interesting to hear the kvetching, the postseason kvetching now. All of a sudden, this is that a new topic, Lubie? You talked about it earlier with Karl Anthony Towns. And the question would have been that there was somebody else thrown in by the Knicks, though, in that Karl Anthony Towns deal, wasn't there?
No, it's Julius Randle.
DiVincenzo, and was there not one other guy?
I'm sure, and I'm sure the other way the Knicks got something else. I remember those were the key parts of the trade.
Yeah, Towns and probably some guy that they had to match to equalize the salaries for the NBA deal, the transaction to take place. I don't know. At first, I thought that was possibly the and don't take this out of context, but the so-called missing link.
I mean, it got some.
For the Knicks, I thought, wow, okay, Julius Randle, they weren't going to win any titles with Julius Randle. Nothing wrong with the way he played. He played well. He plays hard. He's just not one of those guys that carries you over the top. And DiVincenzo was that good hard-nosed player that could also convert three-point shots and get on a streak. So good player to have coming off your bench, no doubt about that. But not necessarily somebody that was going to propel you into a title, where if you get an excellent big man who can also shoot three-pointers, but unfortunately, I guess that's what people's big complaint is, that the guy's in love with that whole aspect of the game, and he's got the whole Steely Dan syndrome going. I don't want to do your dirty work. It's not like he's Bell's Bellamy.
100%. That's his big...
Willis Reed rolling over in his grave thinking about the low post play of one Karl Anthony Towns. So, but an interesting offshoot, and yet, like I said, I mean, as far as I can see, this has been a really tough sell. So does it mean anything to the league that the television ratings, you would imagine, what? Will they eclipse an all-time low for an NBA Finals, going all the way back to when they used to be on tape delay and they played them at 11:30 at night with those crazy-looking graphics? Marv Albert, when he had a full head of hair. I mean, what are we talking about here? You have to go into the distant past probably to find a series that has generated less buzz. Am I wrong about that, though, Libby? We've discussed this, and people want to dismiss the whole idea that people eyeballing and television ratings have any significance whatsoever to these various entities. But you don't want to see your product stop
No.
selling or stop attracting people. If anything, you want to be able to make the case, say, hey, look at all these new people that tuned in because we had 2 new teams. Nobody cares about Los Angeles and New York anymore. That'd be the way to spin
That's what
it,
you're
wouldn't
trying
it?
to do.
Nobody cares about Los Angeles and New York anymore. It's all
Yeah,
about the small town. And part of making America great again is to embrace these low-level markets that you would be hard-pressed. I mean, where do you even find a guy who has the money to put it
exactly.
unless you just won the Indy 500 or something. I don't know. I mean, who even thinks about it, right? Hey, you know where I want to put a team? How about Oklahoma City?
Yeah,
Let's go there.
Let's run.
Edmonton, at least, I guess, to Canadians, is probably a destination of choice for many, many people. People that like to eat raw elk, I guess, would be there. All right, so what do we make of this? This whole Scotty Scheffler thing. Another major is right on tap, is it not? Is the U.S. Open like right around the corner? They just had the PGA. That was the last one that we saw. We've already contested the Masters. And Scotty Scheffler. What do we make of this guy going back to back, Lubie? All the talk was of Rory McIlroy. He seems to, and I believe he was not in the field. Which do people care if they rile up Big Jack? I mean, shouldn't you have respect for the guy? He's still relatively coherent, is he not? Big Jack Nicklaus, like he's not an embarrassment. This isn't Joe Biden. When
No,
he gets
I don't
up
think
there.
he's like Old Man River. I think he's okay.
Yeah,
I think.
Seems to have a feel for who's good in the game and who represents what the game should be all about in the Jack Nicklaus fashion with respect for the game. Speaking of which, this was great. It's something that, I mean, will you ever see this, Lubie? Where Carlos Alcaraz is involved in a point with Ben Shelton. Ben Shelton, a young American kid out of the University of Florida, who has a monster game. Okay, this guy, I don't know what he's missing to be in the upper echelon. He's, I think, ranked 10th in the world now, and serves the ball capable of cranking it up. Lubie, think about this: 150 miles an hour he's registered on the speed gun with a serve. What could that even look like, Lubie?
How do you return that? Like 150 miles an hour.
150. All right. Consistently cranking serves up even in the fourth set at 140 miles an hour. And then, it hits the ball big. I mean, and seems to have tremendous athleticism, good, solid all-around game. So he's playing Alcaraz. And we know this, that at one point in any game, at any time in the match, can be a huge turning point. No matter what's going on at the time. Sometimes, even if you're getting annihilated, we've seen any number of reversals of form where this young girl, Paolini, who is a bright young star from Italy, and she's like 5'4". She's a pleasure to watch, Lubie. She ignites the crowd with her smile all the time, plays a game in a fashion that makes you think she just really loves doing this, right? Alcaraz is the same way. And so anyway, Alcaraz sort of like throws his racket and hits a winner with his racket not in his hand at the time. And they award him the point. It's like he was diving for a ball and the racket kind of went flying. Now, there's no way that I'm declaring that the point for the opponent, even in a match against Dr. Jerry, who, let's face it, I mean, Verbal Kent had a better gait than Dr. Jerry does, chasing these balls from side to side. So, and Alcaraz actually stops the chair umpire, and says, no, that's his point, and gives Shelton the point. When do you ever see that, Lubie, in modern day sports? He said, I threw the racket at the ball, which is not legal, and that's how I got it over the net. So even though they had given him the point, he gave it to Shelton, correcting the official on a rule that I don't know. Maybe the guy didn't see the racket leave his hand or whatever. But however it happened, when would you see that? In the middle of like a big match?
Look, when you make a move and you got away with something, in your head, you're like, yeah, I definitely got away with something, but you don't say anything. Like you take it. If they want to give you a point, you're not going to say no.
Right, you give it one of each.
Yeah, that's wow. That's impressive, actually. Like that's crazy.
Yes, because I mean, you've seen it many times if you watch tennis, where you're looking at a match that's going all one direction, and one point goes the other way, and it triggers and ignites some momentum for the other player, and next thing you know, you're packing your bags and heading off to the next destination, thinking, where can I find some grass courts? Getting ready for Wimbledon. That's it. We have to run, but that was interesting. You always. I mean, look, if you had gotten the benefit of a bad call, you've seen this sometimes. I mean, some players have that level of. Is that like the ultimate Jack Nicklaus like integrity? Where if like a blade of grass was dislodged by your caddy, all of a sudden you're enforcing a 2-stroke penalty on yourself because of the honor of the game. Kind of crazy that occurred at that point in what was had to be a match of some level of concern for Alcaraz because this Shelton can play, man. I mean, he's no slouch. Not going to ever be an easy out. And he's a very emotional guy too, Ben Shelton. Have you seen this guy?
I've heard a little bit about him. I know he's American.
You would like him, I think.
He's so that's annoying. But he's an American. He pushed Alcaraz, which is nice to see, especially after Fritz went out in the freaking first round as a top 5 seed, which is annoying. But it's nice to have some young American men causing up a stir, which we haven't seen since you literally said it, since Roddick. And I know Tiafoe is always interesting too, and I think
Tiafoe is playing very well in the tournament, right?
Too. So those three feel like they at least are going to make American tennis matter.
Let's make America great again.
Make American men's tennis matter. I know the women have hung around. Golf is now, I guess, this is her 5th straight quarter, so we'll see if she can build on what she's done in the past. We've had the women lingering. The men haven't mattered for 20 years, so hopefully we're seeing a resurgence in American men's tennis.
Let's hope so. Yeah. I mean, how are we bad at anything?
I mean, we don't care about it. That's sort of what.
Are you kidding me? I mean, look, there's wild incentives to excel at this game. Now, the level of excellence that you have to have, even to be like a 150th ranked scrub. You watch these people play it. It's beyond your own wildest imagination that anybody could be this good at anything. It's crazy. Every now and then you'll go out to a park here in South Florida and see 2 guys that can really go at it, or a couple of women, like we used to see 14-year-old Osaka at a park. And there have been many others. Harvey Fialkov was always assigned to covering these women. Anna Samova has sort of made a comeback. She lost to Sabalenka, but she went through. That's got to be crazy, though, to be in a professional sport that has that much tension associated with it and attracts that much attention. And you're like 15 years old.
It's nuts.
Right? I mean, so a lot of people, you can imagine, just don't handle that well and end up not coming close to fulfilling what appeared to be unlimited potential at one time. Interesting sport all the way around. I mean, very interesting. All right, enough tennis talk, huh? Does that show you how bad this basketball series is? Not only we have nothing to say about it, but the fact that it doesn't start till Thursday doesn't even bother you. I mean, you're like, okay.
Yeah, you don't care.
Let's see who wins Survivor. Just shouldn't Survivor start like a degenerate one and be just about a Survivor pool?
God,
that would be a reality show that I might tune into. All right, the guys are agonizing over their decisions. I don't know. The Giants are laying 3.5. You're really going to use them? All right, we have to get out of here. We will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, I'm Jeff DeForest. See you next time as we leave you now.
The time.
It's 9:01.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they brought.